What if Earth had two suns? The scientific nightmare you never imagined. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, stepping outside with your coffee, and seeing not one, but two blazing suns rising over the horizon. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, what I'm about to tell you is far more terrifying than any Hollywood disaster movie. Because if Earth suddenly found itself trapped in a binary star system, we wouldn't just be facing double the sunlight. We'd be facing the complete and utter annihilation of everything we know. Hey everyone, drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, and stick around until the end to discover exactly what cosmic nightmare awaits us if Earth ever gets caught between two suns. Before we dive into the apocalyptic scenarios, let me paint you a picture of what we're actually dealing with here. Binary star systems aren't some exotic rarity in our universe. In fact, they're incredibly common. Roughly half of all star systems in the Milky Way are binary or multiple star systems. That means billions of systems out there have two or more stars locked in a gravitational dance around each other. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In our thought experiment, we're not talking about a tiny red dwarf joining our solar system. No. We're imagining a second star, roughly equal in mass and luminosity to our current sun, suddenly appearing and establishing a stable orbit that keeps Earth within the habitable zone of this new binary system. Think of it like adding a second elephant to a seesaw that was perfectly balanced with just one. The question isn't whether this could happen naturally, because frankly, the odds are astronomically against it. The question is, what would the consequences be if it did happen? And trust me, those consequences are far more complex and devastating than you might think. Let's start with the most immediate problem: gravity. Right now, Earth orbits the Sun in a beautiful, predictable ellipse. We complete one revolution every 365.25 days. Our seasons are stable. Our climate patterns, while changing due to human activity, follow recognizable cycles that life has adapted to over billions of years. Add a second sun to this equation, and all bets are off. With two massive gravitational sources pulling on Earth, our planet would be subjected to what astronomers call three-body dynamics. This is one of the most notoriously difficult problems in physics. While we can predict the motion of two bodies orbiting each other with perfect accuracy, add a third body into the mix, and the math becomes chaotic. Literally, we're talking about mathematical chaos theory here. Earth would begin to wobble dramatically in its orbit. Sometimes it would swing closer to one sun, experiencing scorching heat that would make our current summer heat waves look like a gentle spring day. At perihelion, the closest approach, surface temperatures could spike to over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Oceans would begin to boil. The atmosphere would superheat. Any exposed living creature would experience conditions similar to being inside a pressure cooker. But here's the truly nightmarish part. Just weeks or months later, that same wobbling orbit might fling Earth far away from both suns, into the cold depths of space between them. At aphelion, temperatures would plummet to -100 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. The oceans that were boiling just months before would freeze solid. The water vapor that evaporated during the hot phase would fall as endless, catastrophic blizzards. Imagine trying to build a civilization, grow crops, or plan literally anything when your planet oscillates between a blast furnace and a frozen wasteland every few months. It would be absolutely impossible. Now let's talk about something that sounds almost pleasant at first, but quickly reveals itself to be a biological horror show: perpetual daylight. If the two suns are positioned in such a way that at least one is always above the horizon somewhere on Earth, then darkness essentially ceases to exist. There are no nights, no stars, no moon glow. Just constant, unrelenting sunlight battering the planet from multiple angles. You might think, hey, that sounds kind of nice. No more stumbling around in the dark. But here's the reality. Earth's entire biosphere evolved around the day-night cycle. It's not just a convenience. It's fundamental to how life works. Let's start with humans. Our circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that regulates sleep, hormone production, cell regeneration, and countless other processes, is synchronized to a 24-hour light-dark cycle. Without darkness, this system collapses. Insomnia becomes universal. Melatonin production crashes. Depression rates skyrocket. The human body literally starts to break down when it can't distinguish day from night. But it gets worse for the rest of the ecosystem. Plants have evolved to photosynthesize during the day and perform essential metabolic processes at night. Constant light means constant photosynthesis. That might sound good until you realize that plants need their nighttime rest period to actually grow and reproduce properly. Under perpetual sunlight, many plants would essentially burn out, experiencing what botanists call photooxidative stress. Their leaves would bleach white, and they'd die from exhaustion. And don't even get me started on nocturnal animals. Bats, owls, moths, countless species of mammals, reptiles, and insects that evolved to thrive in darkness would face immediate extinction. They can't hunt in daylight. They can't hide in daylight. They can't even survive in daylight. Within a single generation, we'd lose potentially 30 to 40% of Earth's animal species. The ecological collapse would cascade through every food web on the planet. It would make our current extinction crisis look minor by comparison. Here's where the science gets really grim. 2 suns don't just mean double the visible light. They mean double the radiation across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And that's a death sentence for life as we know it. Our single sun already bombards Earth with ultraviolet radiation, X-rays, and solar wind particles. We're only protected by Earth's magnetic field and, critically, our ozone layer in the stratosphere. That thin shield of ozone molecules absorbs about 97 to 99% of the sun's harmful UV radiation. Without it, life on Earth's surface would be impossible. Now double that radiation input. The ozone layer can only absorb so much UV radiation before the chemical reactions that create ozone can't keep up with the reactions that destroy it. With 2 suns pumping out UV radiation, the ozone layer would begin to thin at an exponential rate. Within years, possibly months, it would be catastrophically depleted. Skin cancer rates would explode. Cataracts and blindness would become epidemic. But the real killer would be the damage to phytoplankton, the microscopic organisms in our oceans that produce over 50% of Earth's oxygen and form the base of the marine food chain. UV radiation damages their DNA and impairs photosynthesis. If phytoplankton populations crash, the ocean ecosystems collapse, oxygen production plummets, and we're looking at a mass extinction event that makes the dinosaur-killing asteroid look gentle. And that's not even considering the heat. 2 suns mean roughly double the solar energy hitting Earth's surface. Our current global warming crisis, caused by a mere 1-degree increase in average temperatures, would pale in comparison. We'd be looking at a runaway greenhouse effect. Deserts would expand rapidly. The Amazon rainforest, already struggling, would transform into a savanna and then a desert within decades. Hurricanes and typhoons would become permanent, planet-wide superstorms, fueled by oceans that never cool down. The atmospheric water vapor content would skyrocket, creating humidity levels that would make simply breathing feel like drowning. In some regions, the combination of heat and humidity would exceed the wet bulb temperature threshold of 95 degrees Fahrenheit, the point at which the human body physically cannot cool itself through sweating. Anyone caught outside would die of hyperthermia within hours. So let's say, hypothetically, that humanity somehow survives the initial chaos. What would our world look like? The surface would become largely uninhabitable. Humanity would be forced underground, quite literally. We'd need to construct vast subterranean cities, shielded from the double radiation and the temperature extremes. Think of enormous bunker complexes, kilometers deep, with artificial day-night cycles maintained by technology. Every breath of air would be filtered and recycled. Every drop of water would be precious. Agriculture would move entirely indoors, into massive hydroponic or aeroponic farms lit by artificial lights that mimic the old, single-sun growing conditions. The very concept of going outside would become a relic of history, something grandparents tell children about in stories that sound like fairy tales. Those who must venture to the surface would require full-body protective suits, not unlike spacesuits, equipped with UV-blocking materials, cooling systems, and oxygen supplies. The Earth's surface would essentially become as hostile as the surface of Mars. But here's a fascinating twist. Life doesn't give up easily. Evolution is relentless. Over thousands or millions of years, the survivors, both human and non-human, would begin to adapt to this new reality. We might see the emergence of species with reflective, almost metallic skin that bounces back harmful radiation. Humans might evolve, either naturally or through genetic engineering, to have much darker skin pigmentation universally, and eyes with built-in UV filters, similar to what some animals already possess. Sleep patterns might fragment into multiple short periods rather than one long night's rest. Plant life would diversify into forms we can barely imagine. Some might develop thick, crystalline surface layers that act like natural sunglasses. Others might evolve to retreat underground entirely, with only radiation-resistant fruiting bodies appearing briefly on the surface. The deep oceans would become refuges of biodiversity, as they'd be shielded from much of the surface chaos. We might see an evolutionary explosion of deep-sea life, perhaps even new intelligent species emerging from the darkness where the old surface world can no longer reach. But let's zoom out for a moment and consider what this scenario really means on a deeper level. Earth with two suns would fundamentally challenge our understanding of home, of normalcy, of what a planet even is. For 4.5 billion years, Earth has been defined by its relationship with one star. Every poem about sunrise, every painting of sunset, every cultural mythology about the sun's journey across the sky would become obsolete, replaced by a chaotic sky that never settles, never rests. The psychological impact would be profound. Seasonal affective disorder would affect potentially everyone. The loss of the night sky, with its stars and planets and the moon, would sever our connection to the broader cosmos. Astronomy as we know it would die. Navigation by stars would be impossible. The romantic notion of moonlight would be a historical curiosity. And perhaps most troubling, the instability. Knowing that your planet's orbit is chaotic, that you can't predict whether next year will be an ice age or a heat apocalypse, would fundamentally undermine any sense of security or ability to plan for the future. Civilization requires stability. Agriculture requires predictable seasons. Progress requires the ability to build on past knowledge with confidence that the basic conditions won't radically change. A two-sun Earth would be a world in constant crisis, where survival overshadows everything else, where humanity's great achievements in art, science, and philosophy might never have the stable foundation needed to flourish. So here's the bottom line. Earth with two suns isn't a beautiful science fiction paradise. It's a cosmic death trap. It's a world where the skies never darken, where the ground beneath your feet oscillates between extremes of temperature that shatter rock and boil oceans. It's a world where evolution would have to essentially restart, where complex life might never have emerged in the first place, or if it did, would look absolutely nothing like the beautiful, diverse biosphere we know today. The fragile blue marble we call home exists in a remarkably narrow zone of cosmic stability. One sun, at just the right distance, with just the right mass, providing just the right amount of energy for just the right amount of time each day. It's not just lucky, it's miraculous. But our cosmic thought experiments don't have to end here, because if two suns would destroy Earth, what would happen if we faced something even more extreme? What if, instead of two solar mass stars, a supergiant, a star 100 times more massive than the sun, drifted into our neighborhood? What kind of unimaginable forces would that unleash? That's a story for another day. But for now, let me know in the comments. Would you rather live underground on a two-sun Earth, or take your chances with whatever else the universe might throw at us? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, we're just getting started exploring the cosmic nightmares that keep astronomers up at night. Thanks for watching, and remember, cherish that single, perfect sun of ours. We're never going to find another one quite like it.